Hello, and welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we'll air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave a review, tell a friend, help get the word out there. So in-person conferences and events are becoming more regular lately, and I'm glad. I enjoy attending conferences and look forward to the speakers and presentations, and perhaps seeing some old friends and making some new connections. As an introvert, I get charged by ideas and concepts that are interesting and exciting to me. I like talking to people, and I'm not necessarily drained by all people. What drains me is too much small talk. I get drained when the subjects aren't that interesting to me, and I have to strain to come up with something to say. I also get drained when the environment's too noisy and it's hard to hear the other person. I don't mind noisy environments. I actually like loud music, just as long as I'm not trying to talk or have a conversation. So I attended a conference recently, and it was the first one in a couple years, and it did feel good to be out and about. I was giving a presentation at the conference, and I was excited about it. I was looking forward to the other speakers and presentations and perhaps seeing some old friends. I did have a great time, and my presentation went well, and I had some great conversations with old friends and some new. I reflected on how this confidence and sense of well-being and peace that I was experiencing was not always the case for me. I know that conference events accompanied with plenty of networking can provoke a lot of anxiety for an introvert, especially if they're lacking confidence. Conferences have many purposes, but I sometimes feel like organizers and presenters do not accommodate for the differences in personality type. And for example, I'm sure the extroverts in the room love it. I hope I never have to rub the back of a stranger sitting next to me again. This kind of thing can be torture for introverts. So about half the population are introverts, and when conferences don't cater to the need of introverts are less likely to participate with groups or contribute their well-thought-out ideas and insights. So let's work to make conferences better for everyone by making sure they're designed to meet the needs of all attendees. Let's be more involved in creating and also planning conferences. Let's give feedback before and after the conference, letting the organizers know what works and what doesn't. Let's not accept the status quo, but put our needs and desires out there. I am not saying that all conferences have to fully cater to introverts, but the needs of introverts should be part of the planning process. Sometimes there could be a specific conference for introverts. I know I've presented at a couple online conferences that were specifically for introverts, and it was a great time. Maybe I will find or organize an in-person conference, especially for introverts. I can hear the jokes now. Who will come? It makes me think of a past guest, Dr. Michael Alsey. He was a college psychologist, and he experienced the same kind of jokes as he was organizing a campus introvert club. People would say things like, well, if they show, will they even talk? And actually what he said was it turned out to be a very active group and a comfortable space as introverts found a respite from the extroverted world. And it turned out to be a very talkative group. So an in-person conference, especially for introverts, could be a great experience. So we'll need to make that happen. But for today, what we're talking about are conferences in general and working to make them more introvert-friendly. So what are some introvert-friendly approaches to conferences that you have experienced or maybe even implemented yourself? What are some things you would like to see to make conferences and events more introvert-friendly? I put these questions out on social media, and I received some great responses. And if you were one of the responders, thanks. Your contributions were really helpful for this conversation. And so there were many responses about having a quiet space to retreat to, or maybe a quieter space for a one-on-one conversation or even smaller groups. Here are some thoughts from the responses. Designated serenity space for meditation and quiet time with loungy chairs and maybe even yoga mats and no talking. Another person said, I think having some conversation rooms where small groups of people can duck in and chat about what they're learning in a more sensory-friendly manner. This could be one place to get water and snacks, and there's not a huge congregation in one spot. A quiet room with relaxing music, massages, and flavored waters. Meditation class, outside seating, and maybe even a small boat tour. That sounds nice. Someone else wrote, nooks and corners to rest and get away, a book corner. Someone else said, private sitting space with monitors. And I'm going to add to that, not only a space for you to recharge, but also outlets to recharge your devices. I know my devices run out quick in conferences sometimes. And introverts like to prepare for things in advance. So one commenter said, a detailed agenda with lots of breaks, published in advance so I can plan my attendance. Also, physical space is very important to us introverts. Someone recommended smallish tables. I know I find it difficult at the large round table to chat with 10 other people, especially if the room is loud and I'm trying to get to know the people at my table. Someone else wrote, chairs not too close together so my personal space boundary is not breached. Yeah, personal space is important. And it'll be interesting to see how the pandemic might have made some permanent changes around personal space for us. And, as we work to have conferences be more introvert friendly, some things might just need to be part of your own personal strategy. So one person said, arrive early to claim my seat of choice. So I know I employ this one. I'm very particular about where I sit, but I also don't like to arrive late and push myself down that crowded row of chairs saying, excuse me, pardon me, as I try to get to that one last open seat. So I do try to arrive early. And of course, there were comments around networking. So someone said, having evening programming that is more structured, not just open networking, and not until 10 p.m. As an introvert, I know structure can be helpful, and so we know what to expect. We like to connect with people, but bouncing around from person to person with endless small talk can be draining and not very effective for introverts. Someone else said, a participant list so I can work out in advance who I want to talk to. I think that's a great idea. I've seen that at a few conferences. Maybe there's a person who you want to connect with. Maybe you know them already, or maybe you've only exchanged emails. Or maybe there's an expert in your field that you'd really like to get to know better. And of course, many other reasons. Someone else said, no post-conference drinks or networking. Or I would say, make these very optional, but available, as some people are really going to like these kinds of activities. Sometimes I attend conference receptions and sometimes I don't. One thing I have done is when attending an event that I'm dreading, like the after conference mixer, I give myself permission to skip out if I do go and give it a chance, but I'm not enjoying it. And by giving myself permission, the option to leave if I need to, this for me reduces the anxiety tremendously. Someone else said, not too many, if any, mandatory networking sessions. If there are mandatory sessions, again, the whole idea is, how can we make these more introvert friendly? Someone else said, something I personally find overwhelming and a bit dreadful is when there's too much time to network and mingle. This feels especially difficult if I'm attending an event by myself. I love when there's other options and also happenings at the same time. Bonus guest lectures with a smaller audience, cool lounge spaces, small groups with icebreaker games, the option to leave and get fresh air. Again, this is a good thing to keep in mind for those planning conferences. Also, I heard from many responders that the day shouldn't be packed too tightly. But of course, if it is, design your own introverted approach. So someone said, fresh air is key, or getting out to explore the area, even if it means skipping some sessions. Someone else said, I've had to learn to give myself permission not to attend everything so I can replenish my energy for sessions that are most important for me and my business. Also, someone said, it is important to remember if I'm speaking at a conference, I always try to stay at the hotel where the conference is being held so I can go up to my room to get a little alone time before heading back so I'm rejuvenated and excited to participate in the next session. If there's someone I want to talk to, I'll set up a meeting or lunch versus trying to converse in a loud, crowded party or networking event. So yeah, when you're out of town, the conference hotel room can be a great place to retreat to. And I always try to do my best to stay at the conference hotel when I'm out of town. However, I do attend plenty of local conferences, and when I do that, I miss having that room to retreat to from time to time. Someone else says, conferences that don't have something going on every minute of the day. Someone else, I try to make sure I carve out some re-energizing time throughout the day. I review the agenda and think of questions, comments I might want to share in advance. I aim for more small, shorter interactions and don't put pressure on myself to go to or stay long at large cocktail hours unless I'm enjoying myself. And again, part of this comment, preparation is so key for us as introverts. Also, here's something to keep in mind if you're leading a discussion as part of the conference. Don't be afraid of a little silence. Introverts sometimes need a moment to gather their thoughts. If you are the introvert, honor this thinking time as a great strength that you have and don't worry about a little silence. Conference organizers can also take some of the anxiety out of the unfamiliar. Have plenty of signs and a clear path where to start and where to go. Have easy to read maps. Strategically place friendly people to look out for those that may seem lost. So while organizers can do much to make conferences more introvert friendly, take it upon yourself to approach the conference in your own introverted way. I apply this Susan Cain quote from her book Quiet to conferences. So she says, spend your free time the way you like, not the way you think you're supposed to. Stay home on New Year's Eve if that's what makes you happy. Skip the committee meeting. Cross the street to avoid making endless chit-chat with random acquaintances. Read, cook, run. Write a story. Make a deal with yourself that you'll attend a set number of social events in exchange for not feeling guilty when you beg off. So apply these things to your conference attendance. Do it your way while keeping in mind your goals, not somebody else's goals, your goals for attending the event. So, how do we put introvert-friendly concepts into action? Let's be more involved in creating and also planning conferences. Let's give feedback before and after the conference, letting the organizer know what works and what doesn't. Let's not accept the status quo, but put our needs and our desires out there. Of course, keep working on gaining confidence as an introvert if needed. Learn what works best for you in networking and also public speaking. We have and will continue to cover these topics on this podcast. My next 2 episodes will have guests talking about networking and also public speaking for introverts. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to further connecting with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the website quietandstrong.com. It includes blog posts, links to social media channels, and send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. If you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there is now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including your 4-letter Myers-Briggs code. You can also purchase the full report if you'd like more details. I'll add a link to the show notes. There's so many great things about being an introvert, and so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.